Welcome everyone to our weekly community meeting of developers Cozystack. We have such a document. Please put your name right here that you attend this. To have an opportunity to edit this document, you can join this mailing group and you will have access to edit this document automatically. So I have to say that we have Telegram group where we can answer your questions and help you with adoption of Cozystack. Feel free to ask all of your questions. We also have Slack group in Kubernetes Slack. And today in agenda, new release of Cozystack. Hooray! Thank you to Kingdom, especially because he's contributing. He was contributing a lot, and one of the major changes is a new Flux version and changes around it. So right now, FluxCD was changed. Logic of FluxCD was slightly changed. Let me show you. So previously it was core application. That's a structure of our repository. If somebody don't know, I can explain how it works. We have packages directory, and we have some level of packages. The basic level is core 1. It consists of just 2 components, installer and platform chart. Installer is a simple container which allows you to run this installation script. It's a bash script with 100 lines of code. What it do, it just applies platform chart. Okay, back to the packages, core, platform. So it is continuously going to this directory and say, make apply. This doing Helm template and applies all the components of the platform. Including this, it also installs FluxCD, and FluxCD installs all the system components from the system directory. Robert, you have to join a group of Cozystack developers. The red link on the top, right here. After you join, you can edit it. So we have FluxCD, which installs from the system, and now FluxCD was also moved from the core to system. We have specific FluxCD operator, which is managing Flux, and Flux, which is managing all the rest things. This allowed us to also prepare the change for installing FluxCD into the tenant clusters. So you can create Kubernetes clusters, and you can click that you want FluxCD there. It will be automatically installed. Also, there were changes that connected to nginx ingress controller. Right now, for every Kubernetes cluster, you can also choose that you want to install nginx ingress inside of it, and you can point specific host names which should be targeted to this cluster. This would allow you to route all the traffic from the management to the tenant clusters. There were also some changes. End-to-end tests were added, and they still not automatic tests, so you have to have some machine where you can run the script and perform the testing. They are lying in the scripts directory, not scripts, hack directory. Hack. And there is one E2E SH file. What it does, it just creates 3 KEM machines, then configures Talos Linux on them, then applies Cozystack configuration, and waits until all the services will be deployed. So it configures LinStore inside and configures networking, and then waits until those services will be created. etcd ingress monitoring, and finally it waits for Grafana. It also targets Postgres testing. And finally, it just checks that Grafana is up and running. We can add some extra tests here to make sure that some things of the platform working. That's it. So Postgres improvement. We added an opportunity to specify quorum-based replication. That means that you can specify minimum amount of replicas and maximum amount of replicas, which are needed to be to keep data consistent. Until the data will be replicated to all the minimum replicas, they will be the operation will not be finished. Also, we added basic support for RAM, so Cozystack image can be running on RAM machine. Thank you, Robert, for providing an infrastructure of Baby Cloud, which is made of a few Raspberry Pis. The platform installation was successfully tested on RAM and distro-hosted bundle. We also added additional improved development experience by adding additional customized script, which allows you to run make diff, and you will not see the difference. It actually will simulate FluxCD apply operation because Flux also uses customized to adding labels to every Helm release. So now we're doing the same thing, and you will see exact diffs, what they changed. If you change your repository, then run make diff, you will see the difference of the application is going to apply to the cluster, which is really useful. And I think this is the first working implementation of diff for FluxCD. That's it. We also introduced the newer etcd operator version. There are not much changes for us because they were implemented different way using Helm templates before, the after compaction and defragmentation. But one important thing is that now there were bug which was continuously reconciling etcd operator. It wasn't sorting keys in etcd. So every time it was applying continuously stateful set, which was making etcd cluster not stable. Nowadays, since this release, this problem is solved, and etcd cluster should be more stable. That's it. That's all the changes for the past release. If you have any questions, I can answer them.
May I just some beginner question concerning etcd cluster? Should I understand this that it is for the tenant architecture? That means all master will be use this etcd as a etcd database for masters. Yes.
Yes, right now we have two etcd implementations. One implementation, it is etcd implemented in Talos itself. So when you're installing Talos Linux, we don't even manage it. It is etcd which is used by Talos and configured by Talos.
But it will be just for the hosting or host or
yeah. We usually say this is a management cluster and tenant clusters.
Yeah.
So it is used only for management cluster.
Okay.
And for have an opportunity running tenant clusters, you have to create etcd cluster, which will keeping all the. It can keep multi clusters, so multiple different clusters, but it can also be created per cluster per tenant. So actually, when you're creating new tenant, I think I can demonstrate you.
That means new tenant will be stored the data in this embedded, not embedded, how it's called?
Yeah, actually, when you create new tenant, the tenant can be created the same way as you deploying any application. So when you create new tenant, you choose that this tenant should have separate etcd, separate monitoring stack, or ingress. So the etcd choose here will be deployed as separate an application here. And this application will be managed by etcd operator. So this is etcd running in Kubernetes for running the REST tenant control planes.
Mm-hmm.
And we also added etcd, we also added RAM support for this etcd operator. So it should also be should be working on RAM. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, thanks, Andrei. That's clear. I just would like to confirm that I understand this correctly. Okay, thanks.
That's okay. We are here to answer your questions. Ruben, if you say something, we don't hear you because you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank all the people or contributors that are making this great project. It's very nice for me when I was looking, to tell the truth, I am definitely new to Kubernetes because I was using Docker Swarm for, I don't know, for many 2 years. And then I decided to go to this new technology for me. And when I was searching for information, I read about Talos Linux, and after I find this wonderful project. For me, it's there are some questions about the tenant architecture. So when we are bootstrapping Talos, like in the Cozystack documentation, and after when we already deploy the Cozystack, it is creating a tenant root, yes? And in tenant root, must we create, we must deploy also managed Kubernetes to use it, or how? Because I can understand if we think about that tenant root is the first managed cloud Kubernetes, where and we can also make another one, maybe for customers, maybe for even our enterprise solutions. Must we deploy applications to the tenant root namespace? Because as I understand, tenant root is a namespace, yes? Or I don't understand it definitely.
This is a very good question, and I'll be happy to answer it for everyone. First, what is tenant? The main problem that Kubernetes is not tenant wasn't never developed as a hard multi-tenant system. So it is intended to have separate Kubernetes cluster for every user application, for every team of developers, for everything. How do we solve this problem? Or actually, why do we solve this problem? The main reason that to make multi-tenancy in Kubernetes, you need to have multiple Kubernetes clusters. Previously, the easiest way for running it was OpenStack, and in this form, we're trying to replace OpenStack to simplify the deployment of tenant Kubernetes clusters, and also for having the same tooling for managing infrastructure and tenant Kubernetes. So the tenant in Cozystack is this classic namespace. If we do kubectl get namespaces, we can see that there are a set of system namespaces, Kubernetes system namespaces, and there are also tenant namespaces. Tenant is not the thing which you can give to your user to use. You actually can, but it depends on how you're going to use Cozystack, because there are a few options how can you use it. By default, we consider it the scheme where Cozystack is used as backend for providing managed services. So it provides you only a backend, like stable solution for running those services, but currently it doesn't solve you nothing of billing. It not provides you user face for ordering clusters. So this interface, which you can see in dashboard, is just administrator interface. It is not intended to give this interface to the user. But when you're deploying some, if we are talking about how to deploy new tenant or how to use it for giving the users their resources, you have to use the tenants. By default, we have tenant root. This tenant is like a root user in Linux. I can show you documentation page. Your core concepts. So tenant system, you have tenant root, and you can create tenants by running the new applications, by running the tenant application. When you run new tenant, I know if I can say it application or not, but actually you can install it just from the catalog here. The new namespace is created. So when you deploy a new tenant, you can see all of them here. The new namespace is created. So you can switch to this namespace, and you will see only the information which tenant can see. So if we're talking about...
Can I ask a question about it? Is tenant root good for, I don't know, deploying some root business applications, or we don't touch the root tenant, we must deploy another tenant where we can, I don't know, deploy our root business applications, and after deploy another tenants, for example, I don't know, for the developers team who are making application, for developers team who are making web pages or something else.
The main idea here that you don't allow to deploy any business logic in Cozystack if you're going to use it as PaaS platform. So we allow to deploy the applications, I would say databases and managed services in management cluster. But in case if you want to allow user to run their random code, it is intended to run tenant Kubernetes cluster and deploy this code there. Only in this form the multi-tenancy will be working. Otherwise, users can simply affect other groups of users which you don't want. And as about organizing this logic of the tenants, you can imagine that tenant is specific project or environment. If you're familiar with Google Cloud Platform, they have projects term. So you can create separate tenant for every project or for every environment, and then you can give users access to this tenant to let them deploying those applications. And if they need to consume those applications somehow, for example, if they have need for deploying business applications, it is intended to create a Kubernetes cluster. And inside of this Kubernetes cluster, they can deploy their Docker files and whatever they want. The reason for this is that we don't want to make users affect our system and don't want to allow them affect other tenants.
Okay, I got it. So, but the best practice is not to use the red tenant for any, I don't know, any business applications. Just make another tenants for some other projects, I don't know, and to deploy business applications there. And to give them access, we must, in the tenant, create a managed Kubernetes cluster and give them already credentials to connect to that cluster.
Correct. Correct.
So
right now,
just one question. And if they are, I don't know, using something like FluxCD or ArgoCD, so they must always define in namespace, which one namespace, which will be the name of the tenant. Yes.
If they use ArgoCD for deploying what, infrastructure applications or their business applications?
Business applications. Just when I saw that tenant is a namespace, so I can understand how to, I don't know, if they want to have a more good reviewing of what applications are in what namespaces. When it's only one namespace, if you are deploying many applications, it will be.
Let me give you some explanation. So if you want to deploy a business applications, probably it's a good thing to deploy them not like in namespace or somewhere else. You are creating a tenant Kubernetes cluster, it's just another Kubernetes cluster running on top of Cozystack platform, you can retrieve the kube config for it, and then you can do anything with this Kubernetes cluster. Either install or Argo CD inside of this Kubernetes cluster, tenant Kubernetes cluster, and Argo CD will deploy all business applications you need, or otherwise using external Argo CD and giving it a kube config for this tenant Kubernetes cluster. So in both ways, you will be able to deploy business application inside of tenant clusters. The hierarchy of tenants inside of like main cluster is not very important at this point, because anyway, you will be working with tenant clusters. Second thing, if you need to deploy some system components, like, I don't know, like databases, ClickHouse, Kafka, message queues, Rabbit, I don't know, additional ingress controller, all this stuff is deploying inside of so-called management cluster. But here the tenancy gives some flexibility in terms of combining these resources and giving the user access only to the resources that belongs to this user. Probably a little bit complicated, but I think
Yes.
got the main idea.
George, as I understand, is it clear that when we are creating another managed Kubernetes service for the tenant, and when they are already connecting via kubeconfig exactly to that managed Kubernetes service, they are free to use any namespaces they want, but they all be dedicated to only that tenant? Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, I got it. I got it. I thought that it will be only one namespace, which will be called like the tenant, and they must deploy only defining only that namespace to work it.
From user perspective, the management Kubernetes cluster is not existing. They
Yes,
have
it's
just system
another,
where
okay,
they ordering.
now I all the picture, I see it like it is. Thank you very much.
Robert.
From user perspective, when I'm working in a tenant, that means I have something like dedicated Kubernetes just for me, yeah, for example, yeah, or something like Sandbox, which can I do everything which I would like to as a normal Kubernetes, but it's hidden or it's included as a extra Kubernetes or embedded Kubernetes environment in the maintenance.
But meanwhile, you can use all the services that are deployed already in.
But it is not tenant namespace, tenant root, for example. It's not just namespace, but it's also some other services which consist for whole Kubernetes. Yeah, I would like to say, included.
Now I got the idea. Thank you very much for the explanation.
I think that's I can understand. And if I would like to, why we have a tenant root?
Because we need to give users some initial tenant where they can come and deploy some applications. That's one of the reasons. The second reason that we still have specific applications which can be run just in one instance per tenant.
Mm-hmm.
Those applications can be used by other applications. So there are just 3 of them. It is etcd, monitoring, and ingress. So when you create tenant, you can choose that those extra applications should be deployed in it. Why are they needed for? They are like service applications which used for storing data, for collecting metrics. So when you deploy user applications, they automatically taking the service applications to store the data. For example, this Kubernetes will will use monitoring from this tenant and ingress from this tenant, just because these 2 tenants have no ingresses and this one have no monitoring. This is a little bit complicated, but
no. It's clear.
Yeah.
Just to clarify. Okay, so this green etcd, it is the operate at this moment.
It is storage for Kubernetes metadata.
But deploy or this service is deployed by this etcd operator, yeah? this?
Yeah, but only the things which really use etcd. In our case, it is only used by Kubernetes clusters. Monitoring is used by different applications, and it allows you to run. By default, we usually deploy monitoring in tenant root to see to have the Grafana and storage for monitoring all the cluster. But you also have an opportunity to create external extra tenant and deploy separate monitoring stack in it. And then all the tenants under this tenant, they will continue using just this monitoring stack. This is very useful in case if you want to have to give separate monitoring stack for specific team, for example.
Can you show me also the list of the current tenants, for example? So that's mean each tenant which I create has to be inherited under the tenant root.
Yeah, because you can install every tenant as single application. You can install virtual machine, but you can also install tenant. And every time when you're installing tenant, it is shown as separate application here. And you can also have extra namespace, which you can choose here. For this tenant, for example, there is tenant which has no any applications deployed. For this tenant, Georg, you can export kubeconfig file or token and give this token. If you will use this token to log in Cozystack, you will see only your own namespace and all the nested namespaces under it.
Can you also show when we are creating a new tenant in the documentation? I saw that it must correct subdomain when we have supplied some domain name, but when I tried, it was not defining any domain. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I was doing it wrong way. Can you please show an example? When, for example, in the tenant root, we want to, where we have definitely example org, we want to create another one, which will be called so forth. We must define the whole domain name. For example, foo.example.org, or we must just don't define who, and it will create in the subdomain name.
This is correct. If you don't specify any host name, it will automatically put this subdomain into before the example org or upper domain name. This is done to allow you not specifying domain every time. But in case if you want to have separate domain for your team, for example, or for your project, you can specify this domain for the specific tenant. And if you will create extra tenants under it, it will also add subdomains to it.
Okay, thank you.
Robert, do you have a question?
No, I forget, but
okay.
If I'd like to have a listening on the, for example, have two different domains on the one cluster, should I have two tenant roots?
You can specify only one default domain per tenant, but it is allowed to specify specific domains, host names for every deployable application, or you can create two different tenants and specify this host name there. That's a question why this host name is needed to be specified. This is actually just a service domain. It is used to accessing Kubernetes clusters through the Nginx ingress, for example. But it is not very useful for user side workloads. If you want to route traffic for the user into their Kubernetes cluster, there is an opportunity. So we click Kubernetes, deploy, and there is an opportunity to specify hosts here, and there is a list, so you can specify example.org, who.bar, and something else. All those, all the requests to the main Nginx ingress controller for these hosts, they will be redirected to this new deployable Kubernetes cluster. But you need to have this ingress-nginx module enabled for this cluster. Otherwise, you don't have to specify anything because you will get, it will be just used for accessing Kubernetes clusters. I can demonstrate you. I probably had some cluster here. No.
So when we are defining for tenant, it is only used for service for to access that managed cluster. Yes.
Yes, correct. So you can get a kubeconfig file, and this kubeconfig file will include this name for accessing the cluster. So if our tenant, I'll switch to root. So if our tenant will have host name, I know something tenant0.example.org, then Kubernetes cluster will be accessed under Kubernetes name, then tenant0.example.org.
Is there planning any application, for example, external DNS or something similar to automate the DNS records when we are creating some tenants exactly for accessing managed Kubernetes clusters via that domain names?
Right now, we have no such automation, but it is usually intended to have one wildcard DNS. So you can say star.infra.example.org, and it will route all the traffic into Cozystack ingress controller. Then all the Kubernetes clusters created, even it not, it can be any subdomain under this example.org. So all those host names will be served and managed by Cozystack. Well, that's it. Do you have any other questions? Okay, then open floor. I would like to describe that we have end-to-end tests right now, and I think that we have to configure automating. We have to automate the testing for every pull request. There is a need volunteer who would like to configure this. This is usually about just writing few pipelines and yeah, okay. Just write few pipelines for running this script on my server. I can provide this server to someone, and you can try. I can provide you any information for this. Marian?
I will start this realization, and then I can try to final with this.
I think it was somewhere over here. Integration draft CI. Yeah, I saw it.
Yes, I implement Docker registry and implement some lints and stack it with lints automations.
And what are you linting?
I linting YAML files, and I can stop with this realization and going to end-to-end tests maybe.
Yeah, I think this is thing which is really important right now, and it should be really easy to implement. So there should be done just few tasks: make build and run this end-to-end test after the result of building. That should be enough, and I can provide you an access to my server, or maybe if you have some extra server, it's also possible to run there, because I don't think that something confidential data will be used.
Okay, yes, I started working with it.
It might be interesting to test also if GitHub can provide such machine, but I don't think.
On GitHub, these tests cannot be start because don't enough resources for this. I try this start in my own account and my own repository, and I need a self-hosted or system like Proxmox or like crash install Ubuntu or something like that.
Yeah, that would be really great. Thank you. The next topic is CVDFS. Someone probably wanted to try it. Now it is becoming to be more needed. And I think that was Nikita or you, Mariana, I don't remember.
Okay, I also stuck it with this. I only read all docs, read all issues about that, and cannot start.
Yeah, you wanted to use CockroachDB. Got it.
Yeah.
I have a fear that it is not possible to implement it in Cozystack because of the license. We can't actually take software under the BSL license because it is not allowed to be converted to Apache. So we have to work around it somehow. Right now, we already have really nice Postgres, and I think we can simply reuse it for CVDFS as well. So I can take this task on myself, and I think I will start working on this very soon. I will just assign it where it was. Here, because I already started working on it. And I think to go by operator approach, that's slightly more difficult because changing operator, it's always requires pushing it to upstream. But as core maintainer of CV, says that it is more preferred way for deploying CVDFS. So I think it should be better to use the operator approach the same way like we're using it for any other stateful application here. Marianne?
But we can use CV like S3 or like classical file system.
I think the main reason for running CVD, it should be another tenant-specific service like etcd, and it would allow you to spawn S3 buckets inside. I think we can also add an opportunity for configuring read varied many storage. But I have a fear about using Fuse because Fuse is usually very slow. I know what
I agree with it.
I know what's better to have no such opportunity or to have read-write many volumes, but have them very slow.
Yes, sure. Maybe we can use only S3.
By the way, our colleagues from VitaStore, they implemented NFS server for their file system. And this sounds very interesting because VitaStore is like file system, and now it can be exported through the NFS. And I think this is normal available NFS which can be configured and running in Kubernetes. But there are still problems with licensing. They have really weird license, VitaStore TL.
But how in VitaStore implemented NFS? Because NFS don't have availability and changing servers. We can use in this realization only one physical server or virtual server NFS?
I think they're consuming NFS3 protocol, which is stateless,
Okay.
unlike NFS4. And the next thing that you can use Kubernetes services for routing this traffic to specific instances. I actually don't have any clue how they did that, but I just heard that they did that. And that would be really interesting to integrate VitaStore as replacement for LinStore and for as an alternative, but there's some license issues, and I think it could be done as separate plugin, like external plugin for installing VitaStore in Cozystack. We can think about pluggable system. Right now, we have no any business needs for doing this, but if there are any enthusiasts in community, we are happy to explain how to do this or discuss it. That's it. Okay, so I'm starting working on CVDFS, and there are also tasks we have to add configuration for parameters for RabbitMQ. I think that will be implemented in the next few weeks. One more thing I wanted to discuss is that KubeVirt and common instance types. Last time I was in DevConf CZ conference and I met the guys from KubeVirt. They say that they have this amazing feature. They now provide common storage class, instance classes. And we can consume them somehow in Cozystack to not let users specify specific parameters for running virtual machines, but specify instance class instead. And that's how they looks like. Pretty similar to every cloud, and I think that should be sufficient for running any Kubernetes cluster and any virtual machine. What do you think?
It looks like standardize our configuration with other cloud providers. Maybe it's a good opportunity. But we need also have maybe some custom opportunity to set some custom memory, CPU, and create custom resources for that.
Totally agree. So I think we can implement the selector. Should we use some instance type with specific name and refer to this documentation, and provide an opportunity to use custom to specify different number of kernels and different number of RAM. Ruben?
Yeah, I want to ask, in our Telegram chat, I asked about resource limitation. And for example, if we have given to our customers, or I don't know, to our team, enterprise team, managed Kubernetes in tenant. And when I now look at these values, can we do something that the limitation will be dynamically calculated because of free resources? For example, if already in their managed Kubernetes cluster we have defined some resource limitations, it understands that you can create only VMs, I don't know, for two little virtuals, or I don't know, one big, or something like that.
You mean for per tenant?
Yeah, I mean, when we are giving some resource limitations, and if we are now discussing some tools when they are creating virtual machines and they can choose instance, can we provide instance types depending of how much, I don't know, free resources they already have, they are already left? Because I don't understand how, if they if they will use UI, but I understand that you tell that UI is not the best practice, so they must use API. But if you are talking about the enterprise cases, I don't think that everybody for their enterprise will develop some API or something else. And when they will choose from the UI, and the system is not able to handle such resources, maybe just not to let the user to choose something that they don't have such resources already for that virtual machine.
Yeah, I got it. So you mean to provide an option for selecting only specific resource instance types which are capable to run on this cloud?
Yeah,
I think that makes sense, but this is more about reworking the user face logic. Currently, we don't cover it all. Sorry, but we have no such resources for that right now. Georg?
Yes, I thought about this feature like 10 minutes ago. So if we have tenants, it could be logical to have some limitations on like how many instances of each type of resource could be created inside of this tenant, like one Postgres cluster, 5 Kafka clusters, and so on. And in terms of resource allocation, like how many CPU and memory could be allocated to this tenant. I think it's an obvious thing, but we can wait till somebody will explicitly ask for such a feature.
Yeah, actually, that's how development works in this open source project. We usually are looking for enthusiasts, technological enthusiasts who is going to implement this, and they usually joining our meetings. So we explain how to do this by their hands. Or other option is to hire us for implementing every specific feature. We can prepare design and we can explain how to use it. We can approve this design and then merge it back to the platform so anybody can use it.
I want to mention that it could be implemented by using a so-called admission controller on top of Kubernetes cluster, and it should not be very hard to achieve like a goal.
Agree. And I thought about using resource quotas. Is anybody familiar with this resource? I think it can limit your amount of created resources, but it can also probably limit you amount of used resources. Marianne?
Yes, if we're using quota resources, we need to limit all services in namespace and carefully set resources for each other, for each service, each pod.
Yeah, and there is
would not be a best solution, because if we are talking about hierarchical nature of tenants, so it means that we want to set up some limitation on a root tenant, and all like leaf tenants, child tenants, should not exceed the limit of its root tenant. So resource quota is nice thing, yeah, but sounds like it does not cover all possible cases.
yes. What about adding setting resource quotas dynamically if it's possible? I think it can be done by some specific controller, but to be honest, we have other things to solve that right now. At least it can limit, it can allow you to limit specific tenants to run specific. Yeah, create ticket, good idea.
We can describe all these opportunities and discuss solution maybe.
Resource. Yeah. I will just put Так. And there were also about instance types. In this way, we have 8 minutes left. Do we have other topics to talk about? Okay, then moving to the next section, we can take a look at pull requests. They're going update for Flux operator. It's not ready yet. And this change by you, Marianne, you want to add selector for PaaS Proxmox full bundle. How are you going to use it?
I have a bundle for Proxmox integration, and I stuck it with this because currently cannot start KubeOVN and Cilium, and because current realization don't not found my bundle, and only see a bundle like full PaaS or
Yeah, got it.
distro full.
But the question is why you want to merge it into main first before your bundle is created. So you can join it to your bundle as well, merge it to your branch with your bundle, and then we can review it together, all together. Because right now main have your bundle and there is no reason for having it in main.
Maybe.
So can I just change the base to
Okay.
Proxmox CSI? Is that correct branch?
No, it's not about CSI. It's but I have these changes in my branch.
Integration with Proxmox. This one?
Yes.
Okay. And in this way, it looks good to me. Yeah, there's some conflicts.
Okay, I fixed it.
Probably not critical. But yeah, and how are you about, how far are you with implementation with Proxmox?
I need some time, maybe 1 week, and I have many tests for that.
Okay, I would like to see the design, especially, or hear about the design. What did you decide? So we will use Proxmox as replacement for KubeVirt, isn't that?
Yeah, but the final design I described in ticket about that.
They're just 2 lines.
No, it's not in pull request. It's in issues.
All right, got it. Okay, I'm going to review this.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Then we can check bug scrap issues. These are just our issues, so nothing new. And I would say thank you. 4 minutes left. Thank you, everybody, to attend this meeting. I hope it was useful to you, and see you next week, same time.
Thanks, Andrei. Thank you all of you.
See you
Bye.
on next
Thank you.
meeting.
See you.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Bye,
Bye.
guys.